I said no when my neighbor asked if her son could use my Wi-Fi to catch up on school. The following week, I was locked out of my bank accounts and my cloud storage was wiped. When I asked if she'd given him my info, she just said, "Kids figure things out." I hired a tech investigator, and what he found downloaded onto their family's laptop. I'm a 39-year-old guy living in a quiet little neighborhood just outside of St. Paul, Minnesota. I've lived in this house for about 8 years. It's not huge, but it's mine. 3 bedrooms, decent yard, reliable neighbors. At least that's what I thought. I work from home in IT. Mostly remote support and data management for a dental chain. It's nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps me out of traffic. I keep my head down, try to be a decent neighbor. I wave, I help with snow sometimes, I mind my own business. That's why this hit me so hard. This whole thing started one afternoon in October. It was a Friday. Leaves were everywhere. I just finished a long call with one of our clinics and sat down to eat when I heard a knock. It was my neighbor, Allison. She moved in across the street a few months earlier. Single mom, 2 kids, one younger girl I think in middle school, and Kevin, a teenage boy who looked like trouble even without trying. Always had that "I know something you don't" look on his face. You know the kind. I didn't know them well. We'd waved a few times. She seemed tired most days, like life had been kicking her for a while. I didn't judge. That day, she was holding her phone and a half-empty cup of coffee. She gave me this tight smile. "Hey," she said. "Sorry to bug you. Our internet's been out all week and CenturyLink's useless. My son's behind on his assignments, and we don't really have anywhere to go. I was wondering, could he maybe use your Wi-Fi for a few hours? Just to catch up?" I paused. I knew what I should say. And I knew how it would sound. "I'm really sorry," I told her. "But I can't let anyone connect to my network. I work in IT and I have sensitive client stuff running through my system. It's just not something I can risk." She stood there for a second, blinking. Then gave a quick nod. "No, yeah? Totally get it. Kids and their assignments, right?" she said, but her voice had a sharp edge under it. Then she smiled again. "Thanks anyway." She walked back across the street, and I closed the door. I felt bad, sure. But I'd been in this line of work long enough to know where giving out Wi-Fi access can lead. It's not just about bandwidth. It's what people can do once they're in. Especially if they know what they're doing. And Kevin, he looked like the kind of kid who knew too much for his age. The next day, I saw him sitting on their porch with a hoodie on, tapping away on a laptop. He kept glancing across the street, like he was watching something. Watching me. I told myself I was being paranoid. I kept working. Didn't think much of it. Fast forward a few days. It's Thursday. Everything starts going wrong. It began when I went to pay for gas. My card wouldn't go through on Apple Pay. I checked my bank app, couldn't log in. Locked out. Weird, but not the end of the world. Maybe I forgot a password. I went home and tried to reset things. Couldn't get into my email either. That's when the dread started. I ran to my desktop, which I always keep on. Tried to log into my work account. Locked. Backup files? Gone. My cloud storage showed. No files available. Years of stuff, gone. Client records, receipts, personal documents, photos of my dad who passed away 3 years ago, all gone. I checked my password manager. Access denied? My blood went cold. Every single gate had been closed behind me. Everything I'd spent years building, working on, organizing, just wiped out. And I'm not careless. I don't use dumb passwords. I use long, randomized ones. 2-factor authentication. Private VPN. This wasn't some random hack. This was someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I sat there, frozen. It felt like someone had broken into my house, stolen every paper, every photo, every memory, and burned it in front of me. I started pacing, thinking. And then my mind went back to Kevin. Sitting on that porch. Staring over. Typing away. I could feel it in my gut. I don't know how to explain it. But I knew. I just knew. The next morning, I walked across the street. I didn't plan what to say, and I probably looked like I hadn't slept, which I hadn't. Allison answered the door. She looked surprised to see me. Hey, I said, trying not to shake. Has Kevin been messing around with my network? Maybe trying to get in. She blinked like she didn't understand. What? I mean it. I've had a major breach. Bank accounts, emails, backups, everything. It didn't come from outside. This was targeted. And I need to know if your son's been doing anything. She stared at me for a long second, then gave this tiny smirk. I doubt it, she said. But you know, kids figure things out. That's it. That's all she said. Not concerned. Not curious. Not even pretending to care. I didn't say anything else. I just turned and walked back to my house. Slammed the door. My hands were shaking. That afternoon, I called an old colleague, Colin. He's an independent cybersecurity guy now, runs his own consulting company. He's good. We worked together for 5 years before he went solo. I told him everything. He listened, and after a pause he said, "This doesn't sound random. Sounds like someone wanted you. Could be that kid. He might have sniffed packets from the street." I'd heard of that, packet sniffing. It's when someone nearby uses software to intercept and analyze data moving through a network. If your Wi-Fi isn't locked down hard, someone with the right tools can see traffic. Learn your patterns. Even steal session cookies or tokens and break into accounts. Colin offered to dig into it. I said yes. Send him everything, router logs, what little I had left, anything that might help. 3 days later, he showed up at my place with a grim face. "I found something," he said. He pulled out his laptop and opened a folder labeled Kevin_laptop_extract. Inside were screen captures of my own desktop, keylogger data, password files, cloned copies of my emails and hard drive contents. "What the hell is this?" I asked, my mouth going dry. "This is what he took from you," Colin said. "He's been watching you. He mirrored your drive, logged your keystrokes, and he uploaded some of it to a private GitHub repo." I felt sick. "Where did you get this?" "I got access to their home router. It was barely protected." Kevin's laptop was wide open on the internal network. He didn't even encrypt his stuff. My world spun. "He had everything," I said. "Yeah," Colin replied. "But he's been doing it to others too." I found other folders labeled with different MAC addresses. This kid is playing hacker. For real. I sat there silent, as it all sunk in. He had everything. And I had nothing. But I wasn't going to let that be the end of it. That night I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything Kevin took from me. Everything he saw. Personal stuff. Work stuff. Private stuff. It wasn't just files and passwords. It was pieces of my life. He sat across the street, day after day, pretending to be a normal kid while digging into my world like a rat in the walls. The next morning, I made a copy of everything Colin found. I printed out screenshots, file names, dates, evidence. I walked it straight into the Eagan Police Department. I sat down with a detective named Farley. Looked like he was maybe 50, quiet guy, didn't say much at first. But once I explained what happened, and showed him what Colin pulled from Kevin's laptop, his eyes changed. "You sure this is the kid across the street?" he asked. "Positive. Colin pulled it directly from their network. That's my stuff. That's my desktop." He asked a few more questions. Then he leaned back in his chair. "I'm gonna file this under felony-level computer intrusion." You might want to prepare for court, he said. Will anything happen right away? Depends. We'll send a request to their ISP. Maybe get a warrant. Could take a few weeks. Depends how fast the system moves. Weeks? I wanted to scream. But I nodded and walked out. I wanted to trust the system. But I also knew how things worked. Sometimes people slip through the cracks. Sometimes they get away. So I started doing my own digging. I took a few days off work. I went full deep dive mode. Tracked everything Kevin posted online. Turns out, he had burner accounts on Reddit, Discord, and some sketchy hacking forums. He wasn't just poking around. He was selling information. Bits of it. Credit card numbers, usernames, old passwords from breached sites. Not just mine, others. People I recognized. Names from around the neighborhood. He had a little following. Called himself K4YV1D. He thought he was untouchable. What made it worse? Allison knew. She had to. One of the Discord screenshots Colin pulled had her voice in the background, telling him to keep it quiet. When she walked by his room, she was helping him. Or at least ignoring it. That's when I snapped. I stopped thinking like a victim. I started thinking like a guy in IT who just lost everything and had nothing else to lose. I called up Colin. I want to ruin him, I said. Colin didn't even flinch. You want legal ruin or social ruin? Both. He grinned. Then let's get to work. We spent the next week digging deeper into Kevin's digital life. Found his real name tied to his alias on an old GitHub comment. Found the crypto wallets he used to take payments for stolen data. Found some shady chats about installing spyware on school laptops. Then we made a plan. First, we created a fake buyer account on one of the forums Kevin posted on. We posed as a client, offering to pay big for certain data, credit reports, social security numbers, even blackmail material. We said we were willing to pay in crypto upfront for proof. Kevin took the bait. He sent us a sample zip file with 3 people's info. Names, SSNs, addresses. One of them was his own school principal. Now we had federal-level stuff. Identity theft. Possibly even wire fraud. Colin bundled it all up. Chats, files, transaction logs, crypto wallet addresses. We sent it to the police and the school board. Then we sent it to Allison's employer. Because we found out she worked at a financial firm downtown. Within 48 hours, everything exploded. But that was just the start. 3 days after Colin sent out the full report, everything we had on Kevin, the hacked files, the Discord logs, the stolen identities, my street turned into a war zone. It started with 2 unmarked cars pulling up to Allison's house at 7:30 a.m. sharp. I was drinking coffee on my porch when I saw them. I watched Kevin step out onto their front lawn in a hoodie and pajama pants, rubbing his eyes. He didn't even have time to speak before one of the officers grabbed his arm and cuffed him. Allison came running out screaming, "He's just a kid! He didn't do anything!" They didn't care. The cops said nothing to her as they read Kevin his rights and led him to the car. Then they walked into her house with a warrant. I saw them carry out his laptop, an old desktop tower, and 2 tablets. They also took Allison's phone. 2 hours later, another car arrived, a man in a suit, someone from the Minnesota Department of Commerce. Allison had worked in financial compliance. She was fired that same morning. Turns out, when her employer saw the part of the report where she told Kevin to keep it quiet, they didn't wait for proof. They shut off her building access and revoked her credentials before lunch. I wish I could say I felt bad watching her sit on the porch, head in her hands, crying. But I didn't. She protected a criminal. She helped raise one. A few weeks later, I was called to court. Kevin was being charged as an adult. They hit him with 6 felony charges: wire fraud, unauthorized access to protected computers, possession of stolen identity data, and some state-level cybercrime violations. They offered a plea deal, 18 months in juvie followed by 5 years probation and a permanent record. He refused. His lawyer, probably some public defender barely keeping up, tried to argue that Kevin was a curious, bright teen who just explored the internet a little too far. The judge didn't buy it. They played parts of Kevin's Discord chats in court. Heard him bragging about ruining the old guy across the street, about scraping drives like trophies, and about selling stupid boomer info for gas money. I sat there in silence. I didn't say a word. When the judge asked if I wanted to speak at sentencing, I said no. I just stared at Kevin. He wouldn't even look at me. He got 4 years in a juvenile detention facility and another 4 of probation. His name would stay in the system. No clean slate. No sealed record. Allison? She lost custody of her daughter after CPS opened a case and discovered Kevin had installed keyloggers on the family computer, including her daughter's school account. Her ex-husband got full custody. Allison was last seen working the register at a gas station in Burnsville. Colin and I? We started a side business offering digital security reviews for people who'd been hacked or scammed. We called it Hardline Recovery. And yeah, it's been doing pretty damn well. But here's the part one haven't told anyone until now. There was a moment, late one night during all this, where I looked at myself in the mirror and realized something. Kevin had gotten in, because I got comfortable. I knew better. I'd been in this industry for years. I'd set up security for hospitals and law offices. But at home? I let my guard down. No network isolation. No MAC filtering. I had my work systems wide open on the same net I used for Netflix. Part of me still thinks, if I'd just done that one thing right, maybe none of this would have happened. But that's the lesson. Sometimes you don't get the luxury of a soft warning. Sometimes you lose everything before you realize what you let in. Still, I got my revenge. Not by breaking laws. Not by screaming at a teenager. But by being smarter. By taking everything he stole from me, flipping it, and using it to expose him. Legally. Fully. I watched him get dragged away in cuffs. I watched his mother lose everything she built. I rebuilt what he tried to destroy, and turned it into something stronger. And to this day, when I see a neighbor ask someone for Wi-Fi, I close the blinds. Let them learn the hard way. Just like I did.